Hello, grade 10, and welcome to a new poetry lesson. Last week we took classic poetry, and this week we're going to take contemporary poetry. And of course, the word contemporary means modern. Okay, contemporary poetry or the modern movement in poetry is usually defined as poetry written after the start of the 1920s. In this genre or type of poetry, poets value themes of alienation and isolation. Alienation meaning they don't feel satisfied with what's going on with culture, what's happening, and they talk about their isolation and what they're going through. Common trends include free verse. Free verse is the opposite of rhyme. There's generally no particular pattern of rhyming scheme in their poetry. Not in all of them, but in many of them, they use free verse, which is writing without a specific rhyme meter. As opposed to the Romantic era in poetry, those poets wanted to comment honestly on the reality of the modern world and its many issues. Remember, the Romanticists wanted to go back and talk about nature and talk about the old days, the beauty of everything. The modern or contemporary poets wanted to confront what was going on in the modern world, talk about how alienated and how isolated they feel in what's going on due to these advancements in the world, or everything that's going on in the modern world. Okay, two poets that I chose, two of the most prominent poets in the modern movement, are called Maya Angelou and Robert Frost. Okay, let's talk a little about them. Maya Angelou, born Marguerite Annie Johnson, born 1928 and died recently, 2014, was an American poet, memoirist, and civil rights activist. Remember, a lot of issues due to civil rights in the US concerning blacks. She was an activist for the rights of blacks. She published 7 autobiographies, of course, a biography about herself, 3 books of essays, several books of poetry, and is credited with a list of plays, movies, and television shows spanning over 50 years. She received dozens of awards and more than 50 honorary degrees. Angelou is best known for her series of 7 autobiographies which focus on her childhood and early adult experiences. Her poem, which I chose for you, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, is one of her most widely known poems. It was written in the context of the Black civil rights movement in the US. Of course, feeling caged, feeling that she does not have the freedom that she deserves. She and her people, of course. Robert Frost, born 1874, died 1963, was an American poet also. Frost frequently wrote about settings from rural life in New England. New England is the northeastern part of the US. That's what they call it, New England. In the early 20th century, using them to examine complex social and philosophical themes. Frost was honored frequently during his lifetime and is the only poet to receive 4 Pulitzer Prizes for poetry. The most prominent prize in poetry is called the Pulitzer Prize. He became one of America's rare public literary figures, almost an artistic institution. Many people even think of Frost as a philosopher. He was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal in 1960 for his poetic works. His poem, which I chose for you, The Road Not Taken, is one of his popular works and one of the most well-known poems even in our time. Tells about 2 diverging roads in a forest. Of course, metaphorically, 2 diverging roads. Now, before proceeding, let's just take a look back at the elements of poetry. Let's refresh our memory. A poem, what is it? It's a piece of literary work that expresses feeling, feelings and deep meaning having a generally it does have a particular rhythm or rhyme, even when authors use free verse, but there is some sort of rhyme or rhythm or beat to it. Poems are lyrical, meaning they express the poet's feelings in a musical way. In many poems, we notice that the poet uses alliteration, and I want to explain this. Alliteration is the repetition of a sound, a consonant sound, or a letter, not a word, a letter or a sound, like the letter D or P, okay? It's repeated, we say it's alliteration. Also, just like in a chorus in songs, poets repeat certain lines. Okay, you're listening to your favorite song and the same line is repeated 5, 6, or 7 times. Okay, this gives it a lyrical or musical effect. It is called repetition. When you repeat words or phrases, it's called repetition. When you repeat sounds, it's called alliteration. Poems convey or show or give a certain mood. I want you to know the difference here. The mood is how you feel when you read a piece of work such as poetry. So mood is related to the reader. Okay, when we read Annabel Lee, how did we feel? We felt a bit sad, we felt gloomy, we felt that it was dark and depressive. That's how we felt. Okay, the tone is related to the author. How did the author sound? His or her attitude. So mood is related to the reader, while tone is related to the author and how he or she felt. So mood, as I said, the reader's feeling, while tone is related to the author's attitude. Now we can go back to our piece of poem, one of my favorite pieces of poetry, The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. 2 roads diverged. The word diverged, separated. Okay, like you see here in this picture, there's this road and there's this road. They diverged. You know that, of course, from math also. And looked down as far as I could. So I looked down this road and I looked down the other one to where it bent in the undergrowth until it disappeared. Then took the other. So I decided to take this one. As just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. So he took the one that was grassy, that didn't have many, obviously not many people had traveled there because there was a lot of grass. You know, when a road is traveled by, it doesn't have grass anymore, it's smoother. But he took the one less, where less people traveled. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. So I'm going to keep this for another day, but I'm going to travel this way now. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. So the poet chose this road. Maybe I can go here this way another time, but again he said I doubted if I should ever come back. He just chose this road. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. What you see here is one of the most famous stanzas in English literature. It's just so beautiful and so metaphorical. Of course, the speaker is not really speaking about a real wood. Wood, of course, is a forest. He is speaking of two ways in life, and he chose one of them. I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Of course, the roads we take, the choices we make will make a lot of difference. The word trodden means used and worn down. I'm going to explain the different words if you have any problems with them during Zoom Live, of course. So let's start with these exercises. Answer the following questions based on the poem The Road Not Taken. Identify the rhyming scheme of the first two stanzas of the poem. Let's begin. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood. Again, wood, yellow wood is yellow forest. And sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler long I stood, just like wood. And look down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. B. Rhymes with both. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, doesn't rhyme with anything, so a new letter, because it was grassy and wanted wear, it rhymes with fair. Though as for that the passing there, also rhymes with wear and fair, had worn them really about the same, rhymes with claim. Okay, now how is this poem organized with regards to lines and stanzas? Okay, this is a particularly famous method by some poets like Robert Frost. It has 4 stanzas, first of all, but if you take a look at each stanza, it's made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each stanza is made of exactly 5 lines. Identify one instance where the author uses alliteration in the poem. It's just one instance, and when we read the poem, we'll go through it more. If we can see another instance, maybe you guys can catch another instance where he does use alliteration. Those are the answers. Okay, and the poem is organized into 4 stanzas, each having 4 lines. Again, a stanza is one part of a poem, like a paragraph. One instance of alliteration in the poem is in line 3, this is how you should answer it, of the second stanza, wanted where. What did I repeat? W, the sound W, okay? So this is it for this lesson. We will talk more about it. Of course, we will answer more questions about it, the symbolism, the figures of speech, when we meet during Zoom Live. Until then, please take care. We'll talk about this activity in detail during Zoom Live, of course, and this will be for extra credit. Any questions when you take a look at the PowerPoint, any questions, just write them and keep them for me until we meet. See you, bye.